Okay. So, Josh,
Yo.
2008 was the year of the weird. Let's look back at some of the monstrosities, memorable for various reasons, that came out in 2008. Zenith at Basel World 2008. Do you guys remember the Megaport Royal Tourbillon? No?
No.
There's a reason. Okay. And the weird ad campaign that went with it. I mean, so weird that people still talk about this Zenith ad campaign. Is that a scene from The Matrix?
Right.
Is it a Zenith ad? Is it a Zen catalog? I don't know.
Is he wearing two of them?
He is. He's double pumped.
Okay.
No better way to fight digital agents than with analog watches, right?
Yeah. You got the cage there to protect yourself from bullets and such.
Right, exactly. So that was weird. Zenith has come far, and I think for the best. Also, there was the AP Royal Oak Offshore Survivor 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Just before the world fell apart, AP was ready. Josh, you've handled this watch. What's it like in person?
Yeah, well, we've talked about this before. You said that it's wearable on your wrist. I disagree wholeheartedly. I think the watch it would be cool in a collection, but I could never wear this watch. It looks, I hate to say it because I love AP. I don't even know if I should say it. Should I say it?
I'll say this. It could have been called the Survivalist. It's like an arsenal on your wrist. Without making a political statement, it kind of is.
Yeah, it looks like a watch made for, even though there's a lot of design put into it, design elements like triggers and whatnot, it looks like a watch that could have been made by a brand that we don't deal in.
Yeah.
That's as far as I'll go.
I'll be honest. It looks like it's about to explode.
Yeah.
That said, when you wear, believe it or not, this is a 42. I'm not kidding you. This is classed as one of the 42s.
But all their 42s wear like 44s, and a lot of times, a lot of dealers have been posting them for that until they started making the 44s, mainstream.
Yeah, this thing wears like a Barrett 50. I mean,
yeah, it's ridiculous.
I see like grenade pins. I see a muzzle brake. I see triggers. I see a bullseye.
It's a watch for Jason Maine for sure.
Yes, yes, and it's sharp enough to cut. I mean, this is a really cool watch, and they made 1,000 of them, so they all found happy homes.
Oh yeah.
But this was an apocalyptic watch made for the financial apocalypse and the world beyond.
That's right. Yeah, I wonder how well they sold that at that time. Now thinking back.
I'm not really sure because the world was on fire about 6 months after this thing came out. No one really remembered what happened to watches in the maelstrom.
Let's put this in perspective. I have a customer offering me a Patek Philippe Nautilus 5711 that he purchased in 2008. And we're not going to discuss what he paid for it, but he didn't pay list.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, this is a watch right now that is online used, selling for $41,000. So that's what's going on. That's what's going on in 2008.
In its defense, I like it. God is in the details here. It's beautifully made in the hand. It impresses. Everything is finished in the same gorgeous fashion you'd find on a Royal Oak Jumbo. It's just in a style that is incredibly controversial. And
polarizing, to say the least.
When I say God is in the details, I mean like, not like the benevolent Jesus Christ or a Hindu god. I mean like Ares, god of war. I mean that god.
Thanos. There you go. All right.
So, or the actual inspiration for Thanos, dark side. But I digress. That's getting into comic book paraphernalia. Okay, so remember, this was the same year that Rolex's Deep Sea Sea Dweller came out. Even Rolex was in on the act. 18 millimeters thick, guys. Need I say any more? Big and bold, that's another one of our anniversary to come candidates for, I would say something big might happen with Rolex since Rolex has 2 anniversary watches celebrating their 10th this year. More on that in a moment.
Yeah.
Josh, what is history going, what is the verdict on the Deep Sea Sea Dweller? Well, how are we going to look back on this watch in 50 years?
Well, I mean, I think it's going to be, it's a watch that a lot of people liked in theory. People like me, and probably even you, couldn't pull it off.
I certainly can't. No. Maybe on my leg.
Yeah. So it's a watch that in the black dial variant took a bit of a nosedive in regards to resale value, unlike any of the other models. Which right now you see what's happening. A lot of them are above their listed retail price, which is crazy. So it's an interesting piece. It was a step forward with Rolex, but then you noticed at that same time, what did they have? They had the first 41 millimeter date just and day date, right in around that era. Which they've they've scaled down the day date
The
and
day
even
date
the
2
41.
came out that year too.
Right, exactly. So they had the 41 millimeter day date, which went from a 36 to a 41. So large watches in 10 years ago were a thing. Panerai was in its heyday, really, too, right? So
Panerai didn't seem weird back then. They were saying,
No.
"Oh my God, 44 millimeters. We may have to make more of the 47s."
Right, yeah, 47s, 48s, 50 millimeter watches. So at the time, it kind of fit in. I don't know 50 years from now how it's going to look, depending on when and if they discontinue this model. I think if they discontinue it on its 10th birthday, I think that it can become a really iconic piece that will, down the road will be something that'll be collectible. If they keep making it in perpetuity, it's going to be, just like every other Rolex, which is strong seller. It's a cool watch, but it's not going to be anything that's going to be iconic.
I think they're gonna. I think there's a better than a 50% chance that they discontinue it this year. 10 years after it came out, the year after they launched the now definitive Sea Dweller, the 43, the anniversary, it seems like it's a bit of an overlap to have a 44 and a 43 millimeter Sea Dweller.
Yeah.
And I'll say this: the watch had a really strong second stage to it after the 2014 launch of the Deep Sea Deep Blue.
Right.
That was and remains a fairly hot watch.
That's the hot version of this watch, yeah.
So I think in the future we look back on this almost. It'll never be discussed along things like the Deep Sea Special or the Comex Sea Dwellers because they made more than that.
Right.
But it'll be looked at as an interesting period piece, and I think someday we might look back on it the way we look back on the 70s design of the oyster quartz, or we look back on
Love oyster quartz.
the first generation Milgauss or the Milgauss 1019 and say, you know what, that Deep Sea was an anomaly, but it's a cool period piece, and you get a lot of watch for your money. I think someday people will collect these, and remember, the best clasp Rolex has ever made.
Yeah, without a doubt. That's totally true.
I think
all the sliding adjustments in the new subclass, I guess, were an offshoot of this, right?
Yeah. It's also important to remember that this is 10 years since the Hublot Big Bang King 48 millimeter diver.
Don't make those anymore.
The Corum Admiral's Cup 48. This was the era when big was better,
Yeah.
but biggest was best.
Right.
And it was the height before the fall, just before the crash.
JLC, even the what is it?
The Reverso Squadras, the Compressor
Squadras.
Extremes.
Right, yeah, exactly. Massive watches were really, really, I mean, even when I started getting into this industry, I was on the tail end of the massive watch movement. Yeah. So now, when you see, Rolex pays attention to their market. So they scaled down everything. Even the Datejust, that from the Datejust 2 to the Datejust 41, the proportions are better, it's a little bit slimmer. They realize, hey, let's get ahead of this. Let's start scaling things down. Panerai, you have the Douai, and they're investing in their 1940s radium mirror. So you see kind of where the market has gone. It makes more sense that it's going to more of a reasonable watch size.
You're seeing, we're still pegging back from the excess of this era. Remember, 2008 was the year JLC gave us the Gyro Tourbillon 2. You know what we really need? We need a precious metal Reverso with a multi-axis tourbillon, and all of it the size of a fist. That would look good on a skinny Tim Masso wrist. I wasn't a player for JLC back then, so they couldn't have anticipated.
You'd still wear it,
Yeah,
though.
they didn't know that watch was sized to wear around my neck. All right.
Dog color.
So other anniversaries, the Glashutte Original PanoInverse XL, possibly the watch that better expresses the brand values and invention than anything else. This might be their one full-fledged hit and iconic piece.
Yeah, watch is still selling well now. That's a great watch. We talk about Glashutte and what they bring to the market. Unfortunately, not. Their marketing and distribution is not the greatest, so the resale value is not amazing. But that is their best-selling watch, I believe, and it's a stunning piece, right? When you wear that watch, you're going to get some attention from people who don't know watches, people who do know watches, and it's a tweener in regards to being a sport watch and being a dress watch. I think that's their best reference, right?
Absolutely, no question. They're most distinctive. Something that was entirely them too. No one else did a style like this. And it features the stunning duplex swan's neck fine adjustment mechanism, which was not seen for the first time in this model, but arguably came into its own and became an icon of the manufacturer from Saxony. This is the only Geo that from across the room you won't mistake for a JLC, a Vacheron, or a Lange.
Right.
This is brand identity incarnate, and I would love to see a sports version of this just for kicks, because they need a sports watch.
But that being said, be careful. Don't bastardize the best watch you have.
Yeah. Keep the original.
Yeah.
Keep the original.
Yeah.